Yo, what's good YouTube? Zamcrow here, aka Scoot, back with the Pokemon Battle Federation Season 7, Week number 10, and we're taking on Helmy, coach of the Wisconsin Weezing, and he has a pretty solid squad in my opinion. One of the better drafts this season, if I do say so myself. Alongside mine as well, I really like my draft too, so I feel like we have a pretty solid matchup here. Not solid as in terms of an advantage, but solid as in even and what's the word? Balanced. Kind of a balanced matchup here where my opponent has threats, I have threats. We both have, semi-checks to things. He has, offense that can break my defense that can stall my offense, and I have the same versus him as well. So, interesting matchup in my opinion. I do feel like he's kind of forced to bring some certain mons. We'll go ahead and talk about our rosters real quick. He has Thunders, Incarnate, Latios, Mega Scizor, Breloom, Incineroar, Hippowdon, Gengar. He's got the Mantine, the Whimsicott, and the Stoutland, as you can see on screen at the bottom. And then right above that, we have my team, the Blackmont Raikougars, where we have Weavile, Tapu Fini, Zapdos, Nidoqueen, Heatran, Serena, Haxorus, Mega Medicham, Licky, and Palossand. So our Z-move users are Haxorus and Palossand. Our opponent's Z-move users are Thunders, Incarnate, and Stoutland. So my opponent's got Sand, so he can bring Sand offense. He's got some nice Volt Turn going, some nice solid breakers, and things like but Latios, Mega Scizor, Breloom, Gengar to an extent, and then Z Thunders is pretty nice. He has double grass types in Breloom and Whimsicott, so he's got some nice, lead seed and spore options there. He's got Prankster T-Wave and with Whimsicott and Encore and things like that. Prankster substitute and stuff. Mantine and Whimsicott get Defog, Latios gets Defog, Mega Scizor gets Defog. So lots of different options there in terms of, getting rid of hazards. Thunders even gets Defog, but I do feel like it'll be a more offensive variant in this matchup. More than likely a potential Yachi Berry variant with like Nasty Plot 3 attacks or something like that. And then I do expect Thunders to come. I expect Thunders, Mega Scizor, maybe, not necessarily, but it could definitely come because I have Weavile, and it kind of forces me to run either Natural Gift Fire or I have to always, switch out fearing the Bullet Punch or something like that. So, Mega Scizor is his only check to Weavile, and that's the only reason I expect Scizor to come. So we got Thunders Incarnate and Scizor coming first. More than likely bringing the Breloom to kind of pressure my Licky. It's a pretty solid switch in. It can scare it out with, Superpower, Drain Punch, Mach Punch, and things like that. My opponent also has Incineroar, which is another nice bring to kind of... since Weavile does work so well against my opponent's team, if you look at his team, Thunders Incarnate, Latios, and the Whimsicott, his 3 of his 4 fastest Pokemon are dropped by Icicle Crash, and then Gengar is dropped by Knockoff. Unless any of those mons are Choice Scarf, Weavile will outspeed all of them, and potentially Oko all of them. And I can Pursuit Trap them, especially Mega Latios and Gengar, which are weak to the Dark type attack. If Thunders or Whimsicott would have to be really, really weakened since it's, resistant to Dark types. But I could Pursuit Trap them as well. And then the plan is for, to use Weavile to Pursuit Trap those mons or get rid of those mons with Icicle Crash like I mentioned, so that Mega Medicham is a huge nuisance to my opponent, being able to outpace everything else on my opponent's team. Mega Scizor, Breloom, Incineroar, Hippowdon, Mantine, and Stoutland outside of Sand. So then, Mega Medicham would just wreak havoc on my opponent. So yeah, let's go ahead and hop into the team builder and kind of explain the thought process here. So we have Choice Band Weavile with Knockoff, Icicle Crash, Ice Shard, and Pursuit. Pretty self-explanatory here, I do believe. Have enough speed to outpace the Whimsicott, max attack for max damage output. I got the Choice Band also, like I mentioned, for the maximum damage output with the Pickpocket in case I do lose my item to something like Knockoff Thunders or something like that. Then I could potentially steal an item back, which would be really, really dope. So this mon can, like I mentioned, get rid of all the threats or anything that outspeeds Mega Medicham, Weavile has a really solid chance of getting rid of those Pokemon and then, you know, paving the way for Mega Medicham, as you'll see later on, that we're bringing. So, next I have this nice Zapdos here with Discharge, Hidden Power Ice, Roost, and Toxic. Basically, Zapdos, you know, can semi-check Mega Scizor. Well, I guess it's a hard check to Mega Scizor, but since I'm not running Heat Wave, I'm going to say semi-check. Breloom, you know, gets bought by the Hidden Power Ice. Gengar gets bought by the Hidden Power Ice. Everything else does not appreciate Discharge, excuse me. Whimsicott doesn't appreciate, you know, Hidden Power Ice. I am modest with 72 EVs and special attack, so I am hitting decently hard. Discharge is going to be able to 2-hit KO, you know, things that aren't resisted. And Hidden Power Ice is going to be able to do enough to Latios where it's not an issue. It's going to do enough to Whimsicott to where it's not an issue either. And then Toxic is there for things like bulkier things, like if Mega Latios wants to be a, you know, consistent switch in to Zapdos and always risking Discharge, I may throw off a Toxic sometime and, you know, maybe whittle it down a little bit like that. Same thing for Hippowdon and Incineroar. If Incineroar comes, it could be an Assault Vest variant. And I think, you know, Toxic is a nice way to wear that down in conjunction with, you know, Discharge and Roost Spam. So, same thing for Hippowdon as well. Toxic that thing, and then Roost Spam. I do have to, you know, I guess play around with Earthquake chances on Roost and stuff like that, but it's something worth doing, and I have enough defense and HP investment to avoid, you know, being 2-hit KO'd or anything like that. That being said, Zapdos is a pretty solid mon. It takes hits from, like I mentioned, Mega Scizor, Breloom pretty comfortably. Takes hits. It can take a hit from Gengar, Whimsicott, and Latios if need be. It doesn't necessarily want to take a hit from Thundurus Incarnate, especially if it's a Z-move user. And yeah, we're gonna have to scout, you know, Thundurus out pretty thoroughly. But yeah, basically that's just about it. We have enough speed to outpace Mega Scizor specifically to bop it with, you know, Discharge and stuff like that. And we do have pressure, so that things like Hippowdon and Latios, well, I guess not necessarily their recovery moves, since they're not, you know, targeting us, but their other moves we can PP stall those and, you know, hopefully get rid of some mons that way if we have to. That being said, we can move on to Nidoqueen, which is going to be our third addition to this team. We have Stealth Rocks, Earth Power, Sludge Wave, and Flamethrower with a modest nature, max special attack, and I think we're outpacing with 216 speed. I think we're outpacing what was it? Whimsicott with a Choice Scarf. We outpace Whimsicott as long as we have our Choice Scarf and they're not Choice Scarf. So basically, with our Choice Scarf, we're sitting at the same speed that Weavile is sitting at, so that we outspeed his entire team, bar Choice Scarfers. We are a designated Stealth Rocker with a, you know, Choice Scarf, so we do have to lock ourselves into rocks when we set those up, which is a little bit unfortunate, but we can play around that. I think so. Sheer Force gives us the damage output that we need since we're not rocking a Life Orb or anything like that. And this thing basically just hits hard enough to ruin the day for something like Incineroar. I do expect, you know, Incineroar to come, so being able to hit that pretty hard is nice. Sludge Wave hits Whimsicott pretty tough, and Latios pretty hard. Flamethrower hits the Mega Scizor, the Breloom very solidly, and even, you know, hits Whimsicott too if I don't want to lock myself in the Sludge Wave. Or I'm predicting the Scizor to come in on the Sludge Wave, I can always throw off that Flamethrower and whatnot. So that's just about it for Nidoqueen. We can move on to our boy Cushy this week. We got Serena here rocking the leftovers with Drop Kick and Acrobatics. So we're rocking Acrobatics because this is our designated switch in to Breloom. We don't want Zapdos to be too weakened because Scizor really is a threat, and if it gets up, you know, a couple Swords Dances and stuff like that, it maybe can break through Zapdos since I'm not running Heat Wave and I'm running Discharge and Toxic instead. So yeah, this thing just takes hits from Breloom. It hits up the Bullet Punch plus 2 Bullet Seeds. Bullet Seeds won't break me. Rock Tomb or Superpower. Superpower is actually an issue. Superpower and Drain Punch. If my opponent's like Life Orb or something like that, he can potentially break me. But I do have Acrobatics, so if I can already be in versus the Breloom, then I can just, you know, bop it back with the Acrobatics without being too KO'd first. We got Synthesis for longevity, that's pretty self-explanatory. And then Rapid Spin, obviously, to get rid of Stealth Rocks, since we do have Weavile and Zapdos this week. And we're going to be wanting to get rid of rocks at all costs. This thing also takes hits from Hippowdon and Mantine pretty comfortably, and a little bit from Stoutland as well. We have Drop Kick and things like Mega Scizor and Incineroar that might want to switch in. Come in on a Drop Kick and potentially lowering, I think actually it might be guaranteed to lower my opponent's or the target's attack stat by 1 stage, which is really nice and can set something else up in a very, very solid position. So yeah, that being said, we're going to move on to Mega Medicham this week. We're rocking a 4 attacks Mega Medicham here with Adamant Nature, and I think we have enough speed to outpace Mega Scizor. We have Drain Punch, Psycho Cut, Ice Punch, and Fire Punch, so just the perfect coverage in this matchup, if I do say so myself. We got the Drain Punch, it hits Mega Scizor, Breloom, Incineroar, Hippowdon, and Stoutland pretty hard. Psycho Cut hits Thundurus Incarnate, Breloom, Hippowdon, Gengar, Mantine, Whimsicott, and Stoutland pretty hard. Ice Punch hits the Thundurus Incarnate, the Latios, the Breloom, the Hippowdon, and the Whimsicott pretty hard. And then the Fire Punch hits the Mega Scizor, Breloom, and the Whimsicott, once again pretty hard. So enough speed, like I mentioned, to outpace Mega Scizor. Max attack, Adamant Natured, with 104 HP EVs. This makes it pretty bulky and hits like a damn truck. Despite not having high jump kick, I felt like Drain Punch was a little bit better this matchup because things like Hippowdon could be an issue, and like if I have to take a hit from Incineroar or Breloom first, I can always get my health back with Drain Punch. Same thing versus Hippowdon and I guess Stoutland, especially if like the sand disappears and I'm faster than Stoutland now, I can click that Drain Punch, get a lot of HP back since it's weak to Drain Punch actually, so that's pretty nice. But yeah, that's going to be it for Mega Medicham. We can jump into Licky here. We have a Leftovers Wish Protect Ice Beam Flamethrower set. Ice Beam Flamethrower hits his team pretty hard neutrally, if not super effectively. And then I have quite a bit of bulk to take on, Mega Scizor, Latios, Thundurus Incarnate, both sides of the spectrum, Gengar, and so on and so forth. Pretty comfortable with this Licky set. I know that I've ran Wish Protect basically every week that I've brought Licky, but it's damn good at what it does, so why in the fuck would I stray from that? But yeah, so that's going to be that. Like I mentioned, it takes hits from basically everything on his team outside of Breloom, and I guess like Thunderbolt into Gigavolt Havoc or Thunderbolt into All Out Pummeling from Thundurus Incarnate may have a chance to knock me out, specifically depending on if it's specially offensive or physically offensive or mixed. It could catch me off guard that way. So yeah, that's going to be it for the team builder, and we can go ahead and hop into the battle and we'll be right back. Alright, so here we are with the replay, and my opponent chooses to bring the Mega Scizor, the Breloom, Thundurus Incarnate, Incineroar, Hippowdon, and the Gengar. So no Latios, which is pretty interesting. No Stoutland, so no Sand offense. No Whimsicott, which is really nice. No Mantine, so that's pretty solid as well. He does have the Thundurus Incarnate, could be a Z-move user. Incineroar came, like I mentioned, it was very likely. He has Incineroar and Mega Scizor, so Choice Band Weavile not doing that much this game, while those are still around. But we do have like Flamethrower on Nidoqueen and Licky. We have Mega Medicham with Fire Punch. We have Zapdos, which is a complete check to Mega Scizor as long as it's not already completely out of hand and I just play bad or something like that. So we have ways to eliminate Scizor so that Breloom can be an issue. So that Weavile can be an issue, excuse me. And then Incineroar can also be eliminated by like Earth Power from Nidoqueen or Drain Punch from Mega Medicham. So there's ways that we can open up holes, because if we eliminate those mons, look what Weavile does to his team with Icicle Crash and Knockoff Spam being choice banded, man. It really puts in the work, especially if we can identify his Choice Scarfer. If Incineroar is Choice Scarf, we've got to scout for that. Gengar as well, we have to figure out, if it's Choice Scarf, if it's a trick variant and things like that. Could trick my Licky and then cripple it as well. So some big things we have to look out here for. My opponent does only have one Stealth Rocker, being his Hippowdon, but I don't think that's necessarily his best lead, since Weavile is a likely lead for me, or I do have Serena that can just switch in and Rapid Spin rocks away, or click knockoff on the incoming Gengar, that wants to, block my spin. So that being said, we'll go ahead and check out what he wants to lead with here. We're going to lead off with our Nidoqueen. Reason being for our Nidoqueen lead is if he led with, I guess anything outside of Hippowdon or Thundurus Incarnate, we basically get a pretty cool hit off here. We can just click Earth Power and knock out the Gengar. He doesn't have a solid switch in outside of Thundurus Incarnate, but he might be a little bit timid to switch into Thundurus Incarnate because, it's his only ground immunity. So it's likely that I could just click Ice Beam or something predicting his switch. Or I could just click Stealth Rocks here, predicting his switch out. If my opponent is Choice Scarfed or Choice Specs and wants to just go ahead and knock me out here, or something like that, I'm just going to click the Earth Power and potentially get rid of Gengar, because this thing could be an issue to Mega Medicham. So I'm going to go ahead and click that Earth Power here as my opponent switches out to the Hippowdon. And this thing's going to chew this up pretty comfortably. It's not going to take too much from that. As you can see, it kind of bounces off, and now he's got his Sand Up, and he's in he's in a position to where he's got a good opportunity to set his own Stealth Rocks up, which is a little bit unfortunate for me here because I am locked into Earth Power and I can't do anything about that. My opponent chooses to click Slack Off here, and I can just click the Drop Kick at this point, as he does switch out into the Mega Scizor. He takes little to nothing from Drop Kick, but I do get the attack drop. It is 100%, 100% chance that that's going to happen. So I'm just going to switch out to Zapdos here. He clicks the Knockoff, and it does 26% at -1 attack. So that's pretty offensive Mega Scizor there. We can just roost up here, and we have an opportunity to click Toxic or just switch out. We're going to switch out into Serena because I didn't want Zapdos to be Toxic just in case. And we're just going to switch out here and go for the Rapid Spin as he brings in the Gengar. We can switch out to Licky Licky here as my opponent's kind of forced to go for the Sludge Wave. And we can just wish up on this thing. But what we're going to do here is actually we're going to predict the Breloom to come in. And we get that nice Ice Beam off. Look at the damage it did. It did almost 75%. I was ecstatic about that play. The wish was so obvious, and I didn't have I guess I could have wished past to Serena, taking any hit Breloom wanted to go for, and then tried to Rapid Spin. But had he went into Gengar again on my spin and forced me out into Licky Licky again, I would have been 2-hit KO'd anyway. So I just wanted to go ahead and fire off an Ice Beam there, and it paid off so well. Now I can switch out to the Serena pretty comfortably here as he goes for the Drain Punch. Gets a little health back, but reveals Life Orb. So now he's going to go out into his Mega Scizor as I Synthesis up. And now I'm going to take the opportunity to Rapid Spin, predicting him to do anything else besides U-turning out. And he actually goes for the Knockoff. And I'm going to hard switch out to Zapdos the following turn as my opponent now clicks the U-turn out and goes into the Hippowdon. So I can click Toxic here finally and catch this Hippowdon. But I know he's going for rocks, so I'm going to go hard out into Weavile and start clicking the Knockoff. I want to get rid of some items here as he goes into the Incineroar. Pretty nice. It takes basically nothing there from a Choice Banded Weavile, so we know how bulky that Incineroar is going to be. And he goes for the U-turn, catching some momentum here on our Nidoqueen. We don't necessarily need rocks at this point, so we're just going to go ahead and get some damage off on Thundurus. And basically what this does is eliminates Thundurus from the game because we can now Pursuit Trap it, and it's going to be gone. So that's one mon that outspeeds Mega Medicham gone. Weavile doing exactly what it's supposed to do, and now we can just keep playing defense here and see what's going on here. My opponent goes into Incineroar, U-turns out on my Zapdos, and I'm not able to roost up or anything here. I'm going to go into Serena and sack this thing off because the damage that Gengar did earlier, was 40% on Licky Licky, and either that means he's modest, max special attack, or he is timid with a boosting item. And I felt like my opponent couldn't be, modest, because then he's outsped by Mega Medicham. Not thinking that, if he's Choice Scarf, he doesn't need to outpace Mega Medicham and Zapdos anyway, unless he's fearing Choice Scarf Zapdos, which doesn't really make sense versus his team. So here I go into Weavile expecting either Pursuit knocks this thing out whether he stays in or switches, since I am choice banded. So what I can do is just go into Weavile here and click Pursuit, and I should knock him out, but if I don't knock him out and he outspeeds me and knocks me out with the Sludge Wave, that means he is modest and he is Choice Scarf as well, meaning that Licky Licky can actually maybe 1v1 it, and potentially the rest of his team as well, because I do have Ice Beam, I do have Flamethrower, and I do have Toxic on Zapdos to hit Hippowdon, as well as having, you know, super effective coverage on everything, to hit everything with Mega Medicham. So I'm just going to click that Pursuit here and knock this Gengar out, but he is Choice Scarfed. I didn't expect it because he did so much damage earlier, so I kind of expected a boost in the item. So here I'm just going to go into Licky Licky and click the Wish here. My opponent's going to go into Mega Scizor and Swords Dance up as I click that Flamethrower. And now I can just, I think I can just click Flamethrower once again here. I don't think there's any drawback from that. My opponent goes out into the Incineroar, and I can just click Wish Protect here and see what my opponent wants to do. I don't want him clicking Flare Blitz here and potentially knocking me out. If he was, you know, heavily offensive invested, I know he showed a lot of bulk earlier, but he could have been heavily offensive as well, since he was a Dark type resistant knockoff anyway. So here I'm going to go for the Ice Beam, and I actually get the freeze on Hippowdon, which is kind of unfortunate because now I can't poison this thing, and I'm going to end up losing a lot of PP myself here. So that's a little bit unfortunate, but in a sense it's kind of a good thing, I guess, because I don't actually have to reveal Toxic just yet, and I can still, you know, save that for the Incineroar or something like that. And I can just click the Hidden Power Ice repetitively here, and, you know, slowly. A little bit unfortunate here for my opponent. We're going to speed through these turns. I roost up. My opponent stays frozen. He's got a 20% chance to unthaw, I believe. And we're actually going to be able to click Hidden Power Ice. And I think he stays frozen for 7 turns in a row or something like that. And we're going to be able to eliminate the Hippowdon. A little bit unfortunate, but I don't think, you know, it necessarily changed the game. I did have, you know, Toxic on this Zapdos to be able to whittle that down. And he's going to go into the Gengar here, and I'm going to click Roost. And I realize that I can't Roost this off here, and I could switch into Licky Licky, but I'm going to click Discharge here and try to put him in range of Licky Licky's Flamethrower or Ice Beam. And here, I do get the Para, but he also gets the Curse Body here, so I'm going to switch out to my Licky Licky since I can't Discharge Para anymore, and I can actually click Wish Protect here, but he ends up being faster despite the paralysis. And I save Zapdos because it's an MVP runner, and now my opponent has everything in range of Mega Medicham, and the Gengar was paralyzed, so I did outspeed. Dual priority, not going to be able to take me out here, despite being, you know, very, very close. We are going to be able to pull out a victory here, and we're going to be moving on to I think 8-2, 8-2 record now. After starting 0-2, we're now off to an 8-2 record with a plus 16 differential, and Mega Medicham has, you know, just picked up its 11th kill in this matchup. So really hype about that. We did have a very unfortunate freeze, but like I mentioned, I think Licky Licky plus Zapdos beats the Hippowdon anyway. I think my, you know, Licky Licky plus Zapdos beats the rest of his team regardless, because he didn't have, you know, Thundurus or, you know, like max HP Breloom or Scizor anymore. They were all pretty weakened. And I guess really all I needed was to either eliminate Gengar or to get a Para on Gengar with Discharge, or put it in range of Licky Licky to 2-hit KO it without being 2-hit KO it myself. And then Mega Medicham comes in and cleans anyway, versus, you know, Mega Scizor and Breloom being pretty slow. But yeah, a good game to Helmy. Good luck in your last match. Hopefully we have some good luck in our last match as well. Not good luck in terms of actual RNG luck, but, you know, just good luck in terms of prepping well and, you know, having fun and playing well. So yeah, that's going to be it. Let me know what you think about the prep on both sides of the field, the plays on both sides of the field. what was the MVP of the matchup and what was the play of the match. Let me know in the comment section down below. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, all the good stuff, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching.